Hello. So nice of you to leave greetings on the chat straight away. Hello. Yes, Steve, Tess, Martin, Billy. Hey, and Keith. Fantastic. Excellent. Right, here we are. Oh, how nice. So, when was our last one? It was a little while ago, wasn't it? What was the last one? 16th of November. So, nearly a month ago. And this is the last live of 2020. So it's only this one, and then the next one we'll be doing is the middle of January, so the 18th of January. I'll pop a note on the community tab, so we'll there's a lot going to happen before the 18th of January in many ways, I think. Do you know what? I still wish that I could find that that live that we did probably about this time last year, where somebody, I think it was either David Eucas or David Wood, hello Sally, good to see you, asked whether Merthen, my guide, had any predictions for this year. And, you know, I didn't, or he didn't say about the pandemic, but we did have an issue there, didn't we, where something was raised and it was something big, but little did we know. So there we are, 2020 is on its way out, coming in towards 2021. But what we're going to do today, hello, David. Yes, you did hear your name mentioned. Sean, hello. Jenny, hello, nice to see you. David, I was just saying yet again that I can't remember who it was that asked Merthen, my guide, to do a prediction of 2020 about this time last year, whether it was you or David Wood, who's one of the, used to be one of the regulars. JF, hello. So, don't know, doesn't matter. But anyway, that came up with some interesting results, but I can't find it. I've looked for it because I wanted to sort of play it back now with this hindsight knowledge that we had. So anyway, look, lovely to see you regulars. Fantastic. Welcome aboard, as they say. For anybody that isn't a regular and is picking this up on playback, this is a live. Hello, Margie. Lovely to see you. Fantastic. First cup of coffee. Well done. This is a live, and therefore it is meandering chit-chat. It's going to be, we'll talk about dowsing, we'll talk about spiritual experiences, we'll talk about the nature of reality, and all of that sort of stuff. And really, I'm guided by everybody that is here on the chat. So do ask the questions. Yeah, I think David might have been the other David. David Wood. Good morning, Nancy. Good to see you there. Billy. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Moderating there. Lovely, lovely. Jenny, he said that he wouldn't talk about 2020. Oh, I don't know. I know that he mentioned, I do remember that he did give a prediction because he actually was talking about 2021. And so I kind of like clicked out of it at that point because he's like, did he say 2021? So I knew that this pandemic, right from the start, well, not right from the start. I knew that once we were in the middle of it, it was going to be going on to this year coming, 2021, because of what the man had said. But let's not kind of go into that straight away. If it comes up again as we go through, then we'll talk some more about it then. So, right, a month ago. Hello, Ellen. Nice to see you. A month ago. While I'm here, actually, before we dive in. Do click the old thumbs up that's beneath the screen somewhere over here, I think, because that's a really useful thing just to help the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, to say, yes, we actually like these lives, this is worth doing. So do click away on that thumbs up. Fantastic, thank you. 5 of you just clicked on it. Wonderful, thank you very much. That really helps. It's a little thing, isn't it? But it helps. So last month, we talked about ET, didn't we? We talked about ET. And there was lots of stuff that's come up in between. And in fact, the really funny thing, I expect you've probably all seen, hello, Mark, nice to see you. Good man. You've probably all seen in various places on the internet these photographs of the monoliths, the shiny monolith. It's a little bit like 2001 Space Odyssey, monoliths, but they're very shiny, and they look like aluminium things, and they're appearing all over the place. The first one was somewhere in Omaha, I think it was. Can't remember if it was Omaha, maybe it wasn't. But and then one appeared in Romania, and there's one on Glastonbury Tour, and all this sort of stuff. I don't even know whether they're genuinely there. There was a video about the first one, but I just thought that was hilarious after we'd started talking about ET, and of course the proposition, the supposition that the first one was this is put here by ET. It's just somebody having a laugh, isn't it? Really, and I suspect that most of them actually now appearing are actually photoshopped. I don't know, who knows? But I just thought that was funny. Yes, good point. That's what they look like, isn't it? Electric car charging points. So I thought we would, because I had a whole bunch of stories, experiences that I was going to relay last time that was similar to that ET experience. So the reason for sort of talking about those things is not, like I said last time, I'll repeat it again for the benefit of anybody that missed it last time, but the reason to talk about this stuff, hello there, Soul Simple Discovery, oh nice, is not to sort of brag or say what amazing experiences they were, but to share and to highlight the fact that as one goes through a spiritual awakening and one investigates more deeply the inner universe, then these sort of things can occur. It's not unusual, and actually, while if you listen to anybody's stories, or if you listen to a particularly sensitive medium, or a clairvoyant or somebody like that, or any of these sort of people, Angela, fantastic. Then you can think, wow, that's amazing. Wish I was like that. But let's not go into that whole kind of comparison thing. For most of us, this sort of sensitivity and access into these subtle realms does actually vary. If you think about most of these experiences as being like a wave, sometimes the peak of the wave will give you the peak experience of access into that other dimension, into that subtle realms as you go into that peak. But we all work on these different rhythms through life and through different phases and through the different times of the day and the month and the years. And we're all absolutely unique and individual. And so it's very rare that most of us stay in that kind of peak experience. And the things that I'll be talking about today. That's great, Angela, thanks. Good to see. Right, yes, well, there we are, see. So Mark there sharing that he's had a similar sort of ET experience, contact with that kind of extraterrestrial, and I know that some of you others have had that too. So the question is, how do we, well, I suppose it's very straightforward. It's only people like me that tend to overthink this sort of thing that would say, well, right, so how do we frame this? How do we consider this to be? Do we accept that ET is exactly that, exactly what it is, these experiences? Or do we sort of try to shift our awareness of what we are as a potential creator? And you'll know that most of the time that's where I go. Hello, Carol, nice to see you. Maybe not at work today, eh? Down there on the front line, I think. So Mark there talking about the trees. I'm going to do a little video, a pre-recorded video about making contact with trees and conversations with trees. And now, what was that book? Is it The Secret Life of Trees? I think that's one that Jenny Parks has suggested and recommended to many people. I haven't read it yet. I've got a pile of books like so high next to the bed, but I will get around to it. But trees are a really interesting way into some of this sort of spiritual experience, for those of you that maybe are not yet pushing the door open to it. Well, in fact, no, you are all pushing the door open to it. It's just that some of you have pushed the door open further and walked further into that space than others. But trees, hello from Brazil, fantastic. The Hidden Life of Trees, fantastic. Yeah, I tend not to. Define ET as angels, but you're absolutely right, Billy, that they are not of the terrestrial realm, so therefore they are extraterrestrial. So that's one of the things that I quite often cite. We all, well, a lot of us have that kind of contact with that ET energy, with that extraterrestrial energy, even through the angelic realms. Anyway, so let's come back to Earth just for a moment, and the tree connection is what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, what's the tree? Well, actually, I would say, John McElroy, that okay, fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna kind of let you have hawthorn, right? Yes, well, yes, sacred tree, hawthorn. Actually, I will get a thread going in a minute, but actually I just wanted to mention, really interesting that Martin raises hawthorn there, because oh, I haven't got it here, but I am actually currently taking some hawthorn tincture, and hawthorn is very good for the heart. I won't go into details about it, but that's what I'm taking. And what I realized was that in our old house, when we lived in Gloucestershire in the Forest of Dean, I used to meditate in a particular spot in our garden in the summer months. And I was actually, when I was meditating at that time, I was actually leaning against a hawthorn tree. And that hawthorn tree became a great buddy. But I didn't realize that actually the hawthorn tree was associated with the heart. And even then, at the time, I was working on trying to reduce my blood pressure at the time, before we sold up the house and moved north. And so even just sitting there, hello, Adele. Oh, that's nice. Yes, bullet point. Well, I know, Angela. I have notes, but do I stick to them? Very rarely. So that's why, if you don't like the meandering chit chat, then it's best to pick up the edited versions when they're there online. But the other thing is, do throw in any questions that you want, wherever and whenever, because we'll pick them up as we go around. But what I was saying about the hawthorn was that the management had placed it, had given me that tree there. Just lovely thing. And I didn't even realize that I was benefiting from being in its presence. But the tree that I wanted to talk to you about was actually an oak tree. When I was still in the video production arena, still making videos for the corporate world, I found myself on a location called the Chained Oak Farm. Now, some of you in Britain might have heard of the chained oak, because there's a massive fun park, leisure park, whatever you want to call it, fun park, amusement park, called Alton Towers in the UK. And Alton Towers has a ride, it's called the Hex Ride, and it actually features a model of a massive old oak tree, and it's modelled on the chained oak, which is just literally in a farm, in a woodland, in part of a farm that's next door to Alton Towers, and that's where we were filming. I was filming for JCB, the machine manufacturer, and even then, in those days, I was thinking, well, do I really want to be filming for JCB? And I think about all the damage that they've done, with all those machines digging up the earth and causing all the chaos and all of that stuff. That's the way I was feeling about it. But I, needed the money and quite liked working for them. It was quite a nice way to have a, play with train set in real life. So I was there doing this filming, and we were filming a little excavator, and it was just running up and down this track in the woods as part of sort of atmospheric shots for its promotion, And there was this tree, I was doing a bit of a recce and came across this tree. I found this tree with the cameraman, and I had taken my dowsing rods with me that day. And I stopped because this tree is, you can find pictures of it online, actually. If you just Google the chained oak, so chained as in links of chain. So I was walking down this path in the woodland, and this tree was sort of right up on a bank, probably a good 50 feet away from the track where I was standing. But it was absolutely massive, hundreds and hundreds of years old. You know what oak trees are like? When they get to that sort of age, they are incredible things just to look at, you know, irrespective of whatever subtle contact you have with it. But this tree was literally hanging. It had hanging from its branches, and it had amongst its branches chains with links in them, metal chains with links in them about that big. So a good 3 or 4 inches big. And these chains are actually hanging around the main branches of the tree. And that is the chained oak. Chained oak, it's called. And the story is, and this is the story that goes along with the hex ride in Alton Towers. The story is that the owner of the land basically refused to give shelter to a traveling gypsy one really dark, stormy night. You know, you can imagine it out of a Hammer horror film sort of thing. And as a result of being turfed away, the gypsy basically put a curse on the land and on the tree, and said that whenever a branch falls from this oak tree, a member of, you know, the family that owns the land, a member of the family will die, will perish. And of course, the gypsy was chased away, chased off the land. Some months or years later, sure enough, a branch did fall off that tree. And sure enough, the story goes that one of the owner's family died. And so as a result of that, the owner commanded that this tree be strapped up with these huge chains. And it was, you know, this happened a long time ago, because the tree, you know how trees grow around things that they can't kind of, you know, assimilate or break. And so the tree was growing around these huge chains. And when I saw this, it's right, okay, yeah, so there's a video on YouTube, but I'm going to do another one with a bit of luck. When I saw this tree, I just stopped, because it is incredibly impressive to look at. And it also is incredibly sad to look at. And that's what struck me, is that I was looking up at this tree, and I'd actually got my dowsing rods out, because I was in the habit of you know, tuning into the guardian spirits of sacred sites and all this sort of thing. And I'd taken them, I don't know why, I really don't know why I'd taken them on a filming shoot with, you know, a shoot with me, but I had them. And I tuned in, I looked at this tree, and I was basically going, oh, you know, bless you, look at the state, what have they done to you? And a voice said, spare your compassion. It wasn't, you know, I say a voice said, it wasn't just a voice, it was a booming, I have to say it was a male voice. To me, it came across as a male voice, but it was a booming, incredibly old, but very strong voice. Spare your compassion. It did not want sympathy. It did not want any of that. Spare your compassion. This was the tree. This was coming from the tree, and I could feel it. It hit me like a. I mean, sensitives describe this as a download. You know, you've heard it. You've heard people talk about downloads before. You get downloads from spirit. You get downloads from tree. It's like a packet of information comes at you. And actually, well, this is the way it feels to me. And actually, you have to sort of, you get the impression of the first few words, and then you have to kind of stay with the energy of it to actually be able to allow it to unravel and to come through. And what this tree was basically saying was, spare your compassion. Look around you. There are hundreds of trees here, but I am special. I am different. And this was what it was saying. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And but I looked around, and yeah, sure enough, obviously I was in a wood, so there were hundreds of trees. And yes, it was special because it had that chains hanging off it, but good God, I still felt sorry for it. And I thought, well, what do you mean I'm special? I didn't get any response at all from that. And so obviously, I mean, I had the cameraman next to me who was all used to me with these things, because he used to come with me when we were filming the stuff with Hamish Miller and that sort of thing. So he knew I was a bit wacko at that time, in his words. So we carried on. We had to get the filming done. So later on that day, I came back past that tree. And do you know what? There was a school party, a party of children, and they were probably primary school age. And they were climbing all over that tree. They had been taken there to see the real chained oak. So their teacher was with them, and there was probably 15 or so, maybe more. And these kids were laughing and playing, and it was such a completely different picture to what I'd witnessed earlier on that day. And I just stopped and thought, oh. And he said, the tree instantly said, see, I am special. Because it's the only tree in the woods where all the children were playing. Now, it was astonishing. It was absolutely astonishing. And, I really wish I'd taken some proper photographs of that tree. And, but, I was talking about it to somebody a little while later on. And you know what she said? She was a sensitive, lovely lady, a good friend of Hamish Miller's. And I don't know why I mentioned Hamish there. Her name was Gaily Lane. And she said, well, that tree with its chains, it's like the chains is like our baggage, because it's our baggage that makes us special. And it's our baggage, also our emotional baggage, that also causes us pain. But part of the time, it's our emotional baggage that makes us who we are as human beings. And so that tree was not only, bless him, or it, not only enabling a lovely connection for me, so therefore that it was building my confidence, but also showing me something very clear about what it is to be human. And it was accepting what it was. Hello, Rick. Good to see you. Yeah, well, no, exactly. It's Billy. It's I feel exactly the same way. It's I find it very difficult to do. Well, I don't find it difficult anymore because I've learned to go out and do the weeding. But I used to sort of ask, "Do you mind? Look, I'm really sorry. I've got to take some of you out." And there were so many times that I got the response of, "We are many," and the idea that the collective spirit of plants and trees. It seems to be a slightly different aspect of the soul model than we appear or we perceive that we have, right? So I'm less concerned about kind of pulling out weeds and changing things. But yeah, I agree that I'm not a great fan of bonsai, and I'm certainly not in favor of wire and stuff being used in connection with trees and their management. JF, yeah, it's fantastic. Do they have any? I know this is the thing, isn't it? You see, this is what has always struck me with that as well, with that particular tree. It's like, because I've never had a conversation like that with other trees. I've had conversations, but I've not had one that says I'm special, and with such, it's like, yeah, well, you just watch yourself, sunshine, because if you're not careful, I'll be having a go. That sort of, it wasn't mucking about, that tree. It was definitely, I know what I'm doing. I'm here. Oh, the other thing about it was that actually the way that it was sitting, and I think some of the photos online will show this, the roots of the tree, because it was on the bank, the roots were all hugging the rocks, the boulders of where it had grown. And he did say something about the fact that he was with these rocks. This was part of his place to be with these rocks and things. So there was an assimilation, there was an acceptance in its awareness that it was part of a very specific place, and that basically the impression that I got was that these rocks were like its buddies. We know that rocks, stones, will speak as well in exactly the same way. You can talk to stones and rocks in exactly the same way and get information back. Well, what I tend to find is that they really take a fair amount of time to come through. And so I really don't know whether that was just something from that particular tree, but maybe because of the amount of human interaction that it had. I don't know. I really don't know. I had a really nice chat with the beech, the nice smooth barked beech trees that can grow massively. Lovely, lovely trees they are, fantastic. And I spent a lunchtime once in the Forest of Dean. I'd gone for a walk and just sat with a tree there and had a really nice conversation. But that was a very different kind of feeling. That was very much, welcome, spend your time here, relax, tune in and just, allow the peace of the tree, actually. And when I got up to go, I said, see you again. And he said, yeah, you will. Which is like, yeah. And in fact, we've got a reasonable sized beech tree now growing in this back garden here, which is beautiful. So, rock is history of the earth, yeah. Yes, and there's also this aspect of trees where you can quite often find a king tree or a queen tree, the tree that is in charge, the tree that is the superior tree, in charge of an area. If you think about, especially in woodland where you've got a decent sized bit of wood, you can quite often find that. Thanks, Ellen. Yeah, I know. I'm not sure whether it's thank God on my behalf I won't be carted away or what. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Mum, but yeah, I know I'm talking to the converted. So with trees, king tree, you'll quite often find that there's this sort of guardian aspect. There'll be some of the older trees usually would be the king and queen, the guardian, or the gateway sometimes into a forest. So there's all sorts of things, interesting stuff. Solar chakra 3. So is that the solar plexus? So solar plexus then, Mark, I guess, is what you're saying, which is that one connected to everything. Yeah, right. Yes, well, there you go. Fantastic, Tess. Fantastic. Yeah. Right, cool. Excellent. Good. So now the other thing, just I don't think it's important, but well, the hawthorn, Billy, was really just about the heart. It was just about the fact that hawthorn, the hawthorn tincture that I'm currently taking is very good for the heart. But back in the day when we had this garden with the hawthorn tree in it, that I found myself basically meditating under, the fact that I hadn't realized at the time that was also very good for the heart. So hawthorn trees, or May trees, when you get the purple ones, they're known as May trees, I believe. They can be absolutely beautiful things. And of course, the Glastonbury tree is a hawthorn, the one that was supposedly planted by Joseph of Arimathea. Is that right? It is a hawthorn, isn't it, at Glastonbury? Or it was before it was ripped up. So let me know on that, because I'm sure you'll know better than me, but I'm pretty sure it was. So yeah, so that process of communicating, great, thanks. That process of communicating with trees is, it's there for all of us. And it's just such a huge opportunity to actually, accept their wisdom, really, I suppose. And it's a very, very humbling thing. These days, thorns, a chalicewell, and a tor from the same family. Right, fantastic. Isn't it bread and cheese tree or something like that as well? They used to call it something like that a few decades ago, I think, Ellen, because I think the leaves, the young leaves, taste a little bit cheesy. Anyway, so fabulous opportunity to tune into trees. Don't feel too embarrassed if you want to go and hug a tree. You don't have to hug it, as that story about the chained oak illustrates. You can do it, you do it from a distance. You don't even need to be in its auric field. But there is a wonderful, well, you would have seen it. You've seen it on some of the videos. You can do a wonderful test with trees, and you would have seen Hamish doing it. He does it in one of the videos where you just douse to see the resting auric field and then send it some love and then see how far out the auric field expands. That's a lovely thing. Yeah, you're going to have to clarify what Dharma is for me, Keith. I'm afraid I'm lost on some of the Buddhist expressions. So I'd be really grateful for that. If you can explain it for me. So yeah, trees and nature. I mean, yeah, okay. So we're going to be doing, I think next year, what I'm going to do is to try and do more work for those that are less, haven't pushed the door open quite so far, about the benefits of nature, because it's part of our spirituality, really. It doesn't matter. You don't have to get, that's so new age, or that's so Wiccan, or that's so, it's all magic. You don't have to sort of put the label on it. It's just, sorry, I don't want to talk like that, but because I know you guys won't do that, but some, people do that come to the channel. I get a little bit fed up with people that say, "Oh, this is so new age," and you think, I don't even know what new age is. But just the opportunity to sit with nature and sit in nature and recognize how beneficial it is fantastic. What's the best way to connect to trees? Yes, Sean. Okay. I mean, I personally have found that the best way is to simply sit at the bottom of the tree and sit with your back to the tree and to actually just meditate. So you don't have to try to communicate with it. Just sit there and allow yourself, you know what I say about meditation? It's the foundation stone of all of this inner work. But if you can just sit there, and you see, if you're just sitting at the base of a tree, even if you're sitting somewhere that's fairly busy, you don't look like a nutter to the general public. You could just sit there and sit with the tree and close your eyes and just drift off and drift and be and know that tree knows you're there, because it does. There's absolutely no way that you can be resting against a tree and it not be aware. It knows you're there, right? And it will. Oh, do they? Thanks, Ellen. That's interesting to know. That tree will connect with you if it wants to. What you can do, Sean, is before you sort of really try and relax into that space, is to simply ask the tree to speak out loud in your head. Verbalize, you know what I mean by verbalize it in your head. So you don't speak it out loud, but you just hear that voice, your own voice in your head. Sorry, I know I'm being pedantic now. And just ask the tree to say, if you have a message for me, then please share it with me. I am open to receiving your wisdom or any message that you wish to convey to me. Just be, as open as you can be like that. But you do need to do it without, there's not much point in taking the dog with you, because the dog's going to interrupt your focus and your concentration. And equally, if you've got a little one, then, they're either going to get bored if they're old enough to get bored, or they're going to be, prodding you to get your attention. That's an interesting point, Mark. Thank you very much. Oh, thanks, Keith. Cheers. Thanks for that. Build a relationship with the tree. That is a really good bit of advice, actually, because it's like anything, isn't it? You get used to each other. So there you go, Sean. Fantastic. Yeah. I don't know what was going to come in then, but yeah. Trees. You know how I don't know whether I mentioned this last time or whether I've mentioned this before. Obviously, with tree, you've got the tree of life, and the trees are very distinctive in their shape, aren't they? And my guide, I remember one of the things that he was talking about some years ago was that basically our lives, tell me if I've already told you about this, but basically our lives are like a tree. So there's all of the all of the main trunk and all of the branches out, going into the twigs, going to the small minutiae of the twigs. It's all, there it is. That's our life in all its dimensions. So that tree shape, if you can imagine that classic tree shape, is our life before we start it. It's there. And there are points around that tree, which are the emotional set points that we've agreed to hit in our time, in our particular life. So what Merton was saying was, it's not so much that you follow a predestined path. It's actually that that tree is there, and it's there in all possibilities. So all possibilities are there in that tree shape. You know, if you imagine, okay, I mean, let's not go into too much detail. There's a danger that I'm trying to get caught up in the detail, but imagine that tree shape, that classic silhouette that you see in a winter time against the light, and that is your life. And as you go around the branches, you know, at this point now, I might be over here on this particular branch, right? But depending on what choices I make, I'm either going to continue to move up that branch, or I might zip across to over here onto a completely different branch, because the choice I've made here takes me over to this aspect of my life. And so does this make sense? So you can see that how you, as you make your little choices, you might progressively move across branches. These would be different topics, different subjects. But, you know, if let's say, okay, let's take a maybe this is a bad example, but let's say let's just say, it's not rooted in real life, but let's just say I was had a potential pathway in my life that was ending up in alcoholism, right? Really cheerful. So let's say that. So that's not a great route to be going down, but I could be going down that for many years of my life. Maybe this is, in fact, from my 20s. But what is it that takes me off that path and over here onto one that is not an addicted, you know, living an addicted lifestyle? All of those little choices as we go along, isn't it? You know, it's not really ever, sometimes, but it's not very often one big choice that says, actually, I'm going to change from my life choice to be a non-addict. The little choices. What I'm saying is that applies to every aspect of your life, and in particular, in the way that you open up to spirit and your path that you take as you open up to spirit. The reason I'm saying this, and it's a bit of a poor link through from the tree story, but there's another story that I wanted to share with you, which is one that my guide took me on a little journey. I mean, literally physical journey. I was driving back from a client. So I was in a production meeting. Again, this is in the old days when I was first opening up to Spirit, and I was still running the production company. I'd gone to a production meeting some miles from my house, but the route that I would take there was a rather lovely one through countryside. But I, you know, like all of us, I'd got my habitual route. And on this day, as I was leaving the client, my guide said, "You're going to take a different route home." I said, "Really? Why is that?" He said, "I want to show you." And so at that time, I could hear him as a guide, and I could feel his presence. That was what I mean is that was the stage that I was at in learning the mediumship. So I would often drive and have him talking to me in my ear. And on this occasion, he said, "You're going to take a different route home." Oh, okay, fair enough. And so we were driving. If any of you know this is from Stroud in Gloucestershire back to the Forest of Dean. So it's through woodland, it's through a rather lovely magical valley, and then it's across, you know, and then you come down through into the Forest of Dean. But where I was on the Stroud side of the journey. Stroud is a little village in Gloucestershire. It's known for having a lot of ley lines in it. Ley lines, I use that in inverted commas. So energy lines. So I was driving, I was on my normal route, and then he said, "Take a left." So I took a left, which was an unusual turning for a start. And basically, you know, probably know what I'm going to say. The road got narrower and narrower, and in the end ended up on a bit of a single track. And I'm going, is this really why? Is this really where you want me to come to? He said, yes, I want to show you how things can change in your life by taking different choices. And I was like, well, really? I kind of know that. I get the idea. But this is when he was also talking to me about the tree shape that I just tried to describe to you. And so I was following the voice and following his instruction and thinking, well, I'm damn glad I haven't got another meeting today, because this is going on a bit, getting completely, days before sat-nav, getting completely lost. And then suddenly I found myself driving into a car park of a golf course. And I said to him, probably out loud, I don't know, I said, what on earth have you done here? Why am I in a car park? Where am I going? I've got to turn around now and go back. He said, no, just keep going. And I said, but there's nowhere to go, because there were cars parked. It was obviously a lunchtime or something. The cars were parked. There was a golf club in the distance. And he said, head towards the golf club. Okay, well, I'll drive. So I drove around through the car park. He said, just keep going into the corner. But I said, but there's nothing there. And he said, wait and see. I kept driving. And as I was literally within about a minute, and of the corner there was a gap between the buildings wide enough for a car. And he said, go through the gap. And I drove. I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I drove through this gap. But then, of course, I found myself at the front of the golf club, which is where you'd expect to be. And of course, it was a wide open vista, and you'd travel down, and there's an exit going, the main entrance, basically. I was back through and down, followed the road round, and he said, see? Now, what he was saying was the choices that you make at each moment will take you from one point on your tree, your life, to another point in a completely unexpected way. If you trust what you're being told and trust what you're getting. If I hadn't trusted him, I know it's a little story, it's a little thing, just to drive to the other end of the car park, but on the basis of the voice. If you trust your guidance, then having made that decision, that choice, what is then building on the other end of it, right? Some years later, probably a good 10 years, 12 years later, when my wife and I had sold up our house and we were living in the first house that we bought up here in Yorkshire. And we were living in it was a nice little house, but it was little. And we had never really intended to stay in that house for long because it was too little. There's no two ways about it. It was a small house. The main reason that we'd sold the house in the first place was to cover the debt that I'd accrued in this failing business I've been running. Running a failing business for good 10 years is not a financially, profitable exercise. So we were steadying ourselves, if you like, in our first move when we moved up to Yorkshire. We'd said to the universe, where do you want us? And Yorkshire was where we ended up. And I was in very good connection at the time with my guide. And so we were living in this house, and as is the way with me, I started redecorating. In fact, we completely renovated that house. We had builders into that house, that first house in Yorkshire, and we ripped it apart and we started to rebuild it. We put another bedroom in and we changed its format completely. It was just to maximize the space. And what I was saying was, as is my want, it started to decorate and then sort of gently lose interest because there's obviously other things that take time. So we were living in this house that was half decorated. Now, for a house healer, you might say, well, that's not a very good example, is it? Well, actually, like you've heard me say many times, I am a work in progress, and usually the houses I live in are also work in progress. But the point that I want to make with this little story is about the connection with my guide, because I would meditate every day and I would have conversations with my guide every day in the manner that I've described, with literally conversations, hearing him, and we would have this chit chat. One day I was meditating and he just simply said, it's time to move house now. And I'm like, what? It's and he said, it's time to move house now. And I was like, oh dear God, but it's not ready to put, you need to put it on the market now. You need to look for your next house now. Oh my God. So basically my concern was, but I've got weeks and weeks of work to do on the house to get it presentable, to get an estate agent in. If you really want us to sell and to look. So I looked obviously in Rightmove, over the next few days. And yeah, sure enough, there was a house there that we really wanted. This house. And so I then had the choice of putting my business on hold for a couple of months. I think it was a couple of months, might not have been quite a couple of months. And so I had the choice of putting my business on hold, in other words, trusting what I'd heard, right? And therefore taking the risk that I wouldn't get income for a couple of months because I was going to have to decorate. I was going to have to concentrate on getting the house ready for the market. So, sorry, I've got an update going on. So my choice was, do I listen to the voice? Do I trust the voice? Do I trust the voice? Do I trust my own perception of, have I really heard that voice? Because although you can have these conversations, not being a natural intuitive, not being born with it right from day one, I still sometimes go, what? Really? I don't think I heard that right. And at that time, that was a very real presence. But I trusted him. And I said to Nikki that, look, this is what's happened. This is the choice we've been given. This is a house that's come up. Do you want to see this house? Do you want to view it? So we did view it, and we did take the action. And we did decide that I would focus on decorating the house for 2 months. But, in those 2 months, that was a really scary 2 months because I was very aware that I could just have been making that up. I could have been making that up, that connection, that voice could have been there because his voice is like my voice, but different. It's like it has an aspect, that internal reading voice that we all have. So I can hear my internal reading voice when I hear him talking to me, at me quite often, when I hear him talking to me. His voice is very similar to mine, but it is equally not my voice, right? Does that make sense? There's all sorts of feelings that go along with that connection as well. But what I'm trying to get at is that even when we've had a substantial relationship with a guide who we have grown to trust through various exercises and time spent with them, there is still an element of doubt, and there is still an element of, is that really an instruction or a guidance from the subtle realms, or is it just me making it up? And the answer is, as far as I'm concerned, I actually think it's a bit of both. Because don't get me wrong, I'm not saying for one moment that spirit guides do not exist. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is the other way around, is that actually the amount of perspective that we have to shift in order to see what the human being really is in actuality, with all of its potential to be linking into those aspects of personality in the subtle realm. The requirement, the shift of perspective is pretty major to be able to actually see the oneness of everything. It's the oneness of all of that potential that is the amazing thing. And I suppose that's why I've told you those little stories today, those experiences of mine, is to illustrate how those connections can really impact your reality, and how important it is to have that gap if you want to explore the spiritual aspect of life, of reality, of being, to have that gap where you can independently observe. In other words, to dissociate yourself, to distance yourself from your own being, literally, from your own beliefs, from your own presence, because the essence that is, as we've talked about before, the essence of the oneness of source that is in here is actually distanced from that aspect that is Tim Walter, or that aspect that is Ellen, or is Rick, or is Mark, or is Billy, or is Keith. And that ability to distance, and that ability to separate, and that ability to, actually, it's almost taking separation right round in full circle, because it's actually joining. It's a separation from that ego identity and pulling back and joining the oneness, if you want to call it that. It's a corny expression, but that process. That process is as much a wave, as we talked about earlier on, as any other process that we human beings go through. So it's not something that you kind of go, yes, I can do this. I can do this now. This is the way it's going to be now. I'm going to have these conversations with my guide for the rest of my life. It kind of fluctuates, and it does for everybody, unless they're really a natural medium, and that's fine, because, and you'll know if you are, you know, once you've got it locked, if you're born with it from day one, that is your life, that's your life pattern. Your tree, that pattern of the tree that your life is always there with that divine guidance as part of it, right to the fore, if you're that sensitive, which some of you are. And part of your battle, part of the trunk of your life that is the battle, that is the exploration, is who am I? Is to understand why is it that you seem to see the world so differently to everybody else, especially when you're young. That's part of your battle, those of you that are that sensitive. The kingdom of heaven dwells within, yeah, exactly. I mean, I completely, you know, there's so many good expressions within the Bible. I have no problem with the Bible, and I embrace a lot of that teaching. It's there. Well, that's very kind of you, Ellen, I think. So, I think sharing. Yeah, great, good, Billy. Well done, you. Well done. That is exactly what you want to be doing, is learning to be able to embrace it. And part of the issue is with all of these aspects is, oh, excuse me, that's lunch. How human can we get? Part of the battle is actually recognizing the difference. And I was in conversation with somebody, and I've been talking to the house healing students a lot about introversion and that aspect of self. When you understand, if you're an introvert and you you spend, like I did, spent probably 40 plus years of my life thinking, why don't I enjoy being amongst people and doing these things that other people, like my brother, is a really big time extrovert. He really gets his energy from being with people. Whereas I don't. And so I was constantly comparing myself to my older brother when I was growing up and thinking, why do I not, there must be something wrong. There must be something wrong with me. But when you realize, and somebody helps you see these aspects of self, which are just unique gifts that we all have, like I said right at the top, the baggage from the chained oak representing the emotional baggage that we all have, but even characteristics that we all have as independent human beings. You see your gifts, and it's great. It helps you. Thank you, Billy. Lovely. What a nice clock that is. So yeah, we've wound through 50 or so minutes. So questions with people. There's 32 of you out there. Gosh, that's nice. Oh, 25 thumbs up. That's lovely. Thank you very much. Any questions on all of that stuff? I hope that's been helpful or useful. I don't want to just sit here and kind of pontificate. Well, not pontificate, but recollect or reminisce without it being helpful for you. So hopefully that was helpful. And what we want to do is leave your questions. If you ever think of questions between sessions. Okay, cool, good, thanks. I just wonder, there's quite a delay on the chat sometimes. Cool. If you think of any questions, wandering through your head, we've got a month before the next live. Pop something on the community tab, or those of you that are on Facebook, pop a question in. But if you could you do me a favor? If you ask a question that actually you're completely happy, or you're aiming to be sort of let us discuss on the YouTube, can just mention YouTube, because otherwise I'll dive in and try and answer it there and then and get caught up in it all today. I haven't got. I don't think I'm going to have a chance, Billy, to get one done like that for the 21st. The next one will be going live somewhere. Well, either I try to get a recorded video up either Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. You can tell how my week's going. If I get a video up on Thursday, it's going okay. If it goes up on Saturday, it's been a bit busy. So you can tell at the moment, that's the way it works. So 21st, which is Monday, next Monday. Look, it's going to be really, really interesting, guys. This solstice is going to be really interesting. And are we in the major Saturn-Jupiter alignment now, or what? I'm not sure, but that's an interesting time. Basically, all the energies going on in the wider cosmos are very interesting, and we're using the term interesting in that Chinese expression of "may you live in interesting times," which for sure we do. So don't get bogged down in it all. And when it's all, thanks, Jenny. Yeah, I look forward to it too. I don't know how it's going to go yet. Don't get bogged down in all the nonsense. The great conjunction happens on the 21st as well. Right. 21. Your sister is a year past 21. Crazy year. My sister. I don't understand that, Ellen. Sorry. Not sure what you mean quite. Well, certainly 20 has been a crazy year. 2021 is going to be equally crazy if you pay attention. If you want to buy into the craziness, let's not. Let's have a little sanctuary of sanity here. Well, I think yes. Well, I'm not an astrologer, but I know we're merging into the age of Aquarius. I don't know whether it kind of. Oh no! What she do? Your sister died suddenly in this year just gone. Yeah, thank you, Mark. I'm sorry to hear that, Alan. If that's what's happened, that's a real. Oh, bless you. Okay. Somebody else went suddenly as well. Can't think. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Gosh, that's horrible. Okay, well, Ellen, all our best wishes obviously are with you with that. Grief is part of being human, and it's horrible, horrible, horrible when it happens. I was talking to. Oh yeah, that's right. I know what it is now. I was talking to somebody about death. We'll wrap up in a minute, and we're not going to leave death as a depressing subject. It's not. The biggest thing, actually, this ties in really with what we've been talking about today, which is that I was talking to a farmer here about death. He's an old fellow. Well, old. He's not old. He's in his late 70s. He's a young man. But he finds it quite interesting, these sort of philosophical chit-chats that we have out there. And I was sort of trying to help him see that, we all exist within, that we're not this body. We know this, Alan. I mean, I'm not sure. Oh, lots, hello. Okay, yeah, well, yeah, I'll come back round to that in a sec. The aspect of self that is what we perceive to be us, I mean, literally is never extinguished, because it really, really, really does just change energy, and therefore everything around it changes and shifts. So even when we pass, and again, I'll think about my dad at this point, okay, my father, who I love dearly, when he, I know 100% that his essence is still there, here, there, here. It's just that his experience of being alive, of being present, is just so vastly different to this very heavy physical reality that we exist in and we get so attached to. It's not just for you, Alan. It's not just for you. It's for all of us. I think actually, lots, okay, let's just briefly address that. But I think what I'll do is make a note of that, and we will kick off January. I know it's a month away. It's not really like handy to get a response in a month's time, but tips on discern intuition from fears. Well, briefly, yeah, actually, could you just reiterate that in a question beneath the live, lots, and I'll use that as my memory jogger for January. But briefly, the bottom line is that actually you do want to work on identifying what your fears are, right? Because if you've grown up and fed yourself on a diet, I'm not saying that you have, but if you've grown up and fed yourself on a diet of horror movies and scary stuff, then your general energy field is going to be resonating with that sort of thing. I mean, in a very real terms, I mean, Hollywood produces so much garbage that you don't want to be resonating with that sort of thing. Now, you've probably done the work. You've probably already done a lot of healing, and it depends really how you're opening up. I don't know where you are, lots, with all this, whether you're actually more advanced, having pushed the door open and gone away into that new area of the subtle realms and of the intuitive environment, or not, because there's so many different ways that I would want to answer that for you. So maybe if you could just lots, I'm sorry, I am going to put you to one side. Just give me some more information about it, because actually it's a brilliant question and it deserves more than just me trying to rattle something off quickly for you here. If necessary, just pop something on the contact form on my website. Doesn't mean that you're going to get charged or anything like that. Just send me an email. Gives me some understanding. Sorry, I just don't think I want to tackle that question in too short a time. Sorry, lots, but if you don't mind, just pop that in there. Okay, right. So I am now going to pull back myself here and withdraw. But thank you all so much. Like I say, I hope it was helpful. Thanks lots. Fantastic. I look forward to answering that in the new year. And so here we are on the 14th of December. Dare I wish you all a happy Christmas. Thank you, Martin. Yeah, happy Christmas. And to those of you that would rather just be sharing the holiday time, the time for yourselves, or the time with your families, please do enjoy it, no matter how difficult the circumstances are. And for those of you that find this time of year very trying and difficult because of memories that are painful, please try to live alongside those memories and celebrate the good things as well. Lovely. Thank you, Tess. Take care. So many, many blessings. Thank you, JF. Good. Thank you, Nancy. That's good to know. Happy Christmas, everyone. I will leave that just for a moment and let you all say Happy Christmas. A better year ahead, David, and a more clear year. Well, let's see. Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Let's see with clarity next year. And of course, there is no such thing as time, so it's simply a question of being in the moment. Just thought I'd finish on a corny phrase. Okay, so there we go. Billy's already put it up there. Monday, the 18th of January. I'll see you here. And that'd be lovely. Take care. It's been lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks lots. Take care. Bye-bye. There you go.